everyone. My name is Rafal, and I would like to say hello to everybody who's going to be watching. I have a special guest today, Glynns Thomas, amazing headshot photographer, extremely successful in this industry. As I mentioned before we started, your name came in from all sorts of different directions, and people ask me if I could have you on the show because apparently you're just a magician when it comes to the headshot photography business. So thank you for accepting my invitation. I'm super happy to talk to you because it seems like you've made this business successful. You have some kind of recipe. We're going to try to dive into this a little bit today. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation, especially I found over the last several years and the photographers I'm talking to that the business side of headshot photography is it's not easy. It's something that a lot of people struggle with, even though they reach the level where they can produce amazing work. But selling it's not as easy as a lot of people think. But apparently, you figured this whole thing out. So I want to welcome you, and let's dive into this conversation.
Great. Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Absolutely. So before we kind of get into this business and marketing and all this heavy duty stuff, I would like to ask you, how did you even get into this industry? Because I know everyone has their own story, people coming from all sorts of different directions. So what was your story getting into this business? How long you've been doing this? Like, I know you've been doing this for quite some time, but I would like to hear a little bit of backstory. How did you get into this whole thing?
Sure. So I was interested in photography since I was 8 years old, and it's just been a hobby of mine. And by the time in high school, I took a photography class, and showing my age, we were definitely doing film. That's all there was back then, and that was a lot of fun. But by the time I went to college, somewhere in my head, I decided photography is not a serious career. Little did I know. But so I went and ended up started going into journalism, and then I ended up in advertising. So I was an advertising account executive for, I don't know, I think 11 years. I lose track. And then I jumped client side. One of my clients was Wells Fargo Bank. And I was a vice president of internet marketing at Wells Fargo Bank in San Francisco. And then one day I decided I was burnt out. I was not being challenged. I thought I'd take a year off. And once I quit, I went, wow, I really, really like this. And I started to get back into photography. We moved overseas for a few years with the kids. And then when I moved back to the US, I thought, I need a new adventure. Otherwise, I'm going to want to move overseas again. And I decided I would see how this photography thing would go. But when I first quit working my corporate job, I thought I would become a marketing person. What's the marketing consultant for small businesses? I really wanted to work for the small businesses and help them. And I was just failing miserably because I would spend, I don't know, 100 hours on a marketing plan and someone would pay me $200. And they were great and people succeeded with them, but I realized I didn't understand how to run a business. So when we came back to the US, I thought, if I'm going to start this photography business, I need to learn business. So I first started taking photography classes, which fired me up to want to do this. But then I also started taking the business classes, and I probably spent almost as much time taking business classes as I did the actual photography. And there was one time I was flying back from Imaging USA, and I was very early in my career, very starry-eyed and just super excited. And I was sitting next to a person who apparently was the speaker. And I said, oh, I want to look up your work. And she goes, oh, it's okay. It's good enough. And she goes, really? what I'm really about the business side, about serving
Mhm.
my customers. And to me, it's more about how I'm serving people rather than my art. And an additional light bulb went on for me that if I'm in this as a business, I'm really here to serve people.
Mhm.
That's my first and foremost goal.
Perfect. So let's kind of dive deeper into this. So like what was the biggest challenge as a business? Because like based on what you said, you already have some kind of business background before you even got into this whole thing. And I know from even my experience, a lot of photographers out there, they focus first on the technicalities, the setting up the studio, getting the proper camera, learning how to shoot it. But I would say, I don't know, I don't want to throw just the numbers, but I think majority of people, they don't learn business. They learn like, as they go, but they don't prepare themselves for running the business. And I think that's why so many of them fails, because, it's just something that you just hit the wall. And then if the business is not sustainable, you eventually like it's gonna die, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you, let's say, when you started doing photography in the business, like one of the biggest challenges for you, and this is what was as a kind of, I'm talking more about a business side.
Mm-hmm.
How did you kind of get this off the ground, and you could manage learning technicalities and also planning and running the business?
Well, yes, I came from a corporate background, and what I learned there was really how to be a project manager and how to serve people. I knew nothing about how to run a business. I was working for, Fortune
Okay.
50 companies, and I was just a tiny little person in the cog
Mhm.
of that machine. So I did have to learn how to run a business, and I dreaded it. Like I was just like, I don't want to learn this, but I know I have
Mhm.
to. And, I bought a few things that I found online, but it really was at the business challenge at PPA, the
Okay.
Professional Photographers of America. And at the time, it was a year-long class that was done online.
Okay.
And I think that really put it together for me. And I'd already started my business at that point. But I was early on, and I learned everything from, you know, uh, putting together, how you're going to do your bookkeeping, what are your management financials. Um, I'm not even going to remember all this, your contracts, all that stuff. I was really dreading to
Mhm.
learn because it just sounded so boring and horrible and technical. But I have to say, once I got into it and the ball started rolling, I was like, this isn't so bad. This isn't that complicated. I'm
Mhm.
actually understanding this. And they really pushed us towards reading a lot of different books.
Mhm.
So, and that I really didn't want to read those books. Those just sounded so dry. They aren't so bad. And it's kind of like I taught a class for 11 years online called Small Business Marketing on Shoestring. And I wrote it, and it was delivered all over the US and Canada. And it's the same thing I was telling people who owned all these different types of businesses. Like you come into it going, this sounds horrible. I don't want to learn this. And they're dragging their feet, kind of like my customers when they come to my studio. Oh, I don't want to have my headshot
Yeah.
taken.
Well, like
But
most of
you,
them, right?
yeah. But then you get into it and you're like, oh, and you have to get over that initial hump, but you start to realize it's not that complicated. It's not that technical hard. And it is interesting. I mean, I sort of liken it to photography. Photography, there's a technical side
Mhm.
and there's an art to it, right? Same thing with marketing yourself. There's the technical stuff that are your tools, but then you just have to figure out, you just have to let your creativity flow on how you're going to use those tools,
Mhm.
because there is no right way to do it. It's your flourish, your art, and how you're going to deliver it.
Absolutely. So let's break this even deeper. So can we talk about some of those elements of successful business, especially in headshot photography? Because I know I'm coming from like the wedding background, so I know
Mm.
how that worked, and it was completely different approach to business than headshots. And then I have to kind of relearn this whole thing all over again, how to make this work. So let's break this down when it comes to the headshot photography. So what is in your opinion like the most important elements where a lot of photographers are missing? How to approach the business that they should focus on, like you know let's say the quality of images or promoting or advertising, because I know there's all sorts of those elements which you have to combine together to make this whole machine work. And if you don't, this whole thing starts falling apart. So what is your approach, like how you kind of like manage this whole thing to make this machine work?
Uh, Actually, I think the biggest thing is figuring out your system of how you're going to serve your customers, because they are serving your corporate customers. My focus is corporate headshots, like where I go in and I do teams. I'm not so interested in working with individuals. I don't do much. I don't do conferences, but I do events,
Okay.
headshots at events. But there is, you're working with usually a marketing manager.
Mm-hmm.
She's usually female. She's insanely busy. She's under a lot of pressure. And your job is to make this really easy for her and to make her look like a star to her company. So that means I'm not going to ask her a ton of questions. I'm not going to do a lot of back and forth. I'm going to say, here's how it works. How does that sound to you? And I keep the emails as succinct as possible so that she doesn't have to read a lot. But I put in everything that I need to know. And the rest of it, I know I can figure out.
Mm-hmm.
So I make it really easy. I do a lot, as much as I can on the back end, so she's not having to work with her employees. And I'm making it a great experience for every single person that gets in front of my camera, so that the feedback that she gets is, that was a great experience. She was great. And that everyone loves the results. If she can go, I didn't have to do very much work and everybody loved the experience. It is not uncommon for me to see these people getting promoted, not too far after this. Because it really is important to their career. They've probably put up a big fight to say, we need professional headshots, and for the company to put some budgets aside. And so her reputation's on the line. And then she's got her peers coming in front of my camera. She's got her bosses and her boss's bosses coming in front of that camera. So, and they might not even realize what a big deal this is until after, when they get the good feedback of like, oh my gosh, the CEO came up to me and thanked me for that and said, that was the best experience I've ever had, getting my headshot taken. It matters. What we do matters. So making sure that you have a system that you're going to serve and make their jobs easy and make them look like a star, that's the most important thing. And then you can market it, and then they're going to tell other people. And as long as they're having that great experience, it's going to roll from there. And you definitely have to do things to market yourself. But if you don't have that figured out, then you're just going to be like every other photographer and every other headshot experience that they've had in the past.
So let's talk about the system a little bit, if of course, if we can. So, like, I know, especially for those group shots, it's a lot of logistics, right? You have to prepare yourself, you have to manage everything, you have to make sure everything is basically put together so everything goes smooth, and there's no kind of situations that everything's kind of falling apart. I've been in those kind of situations as well, probably you too. So tell me a little about the system. Like, I know it takes time, and I think based on my experience, a lot of those things we learn comes from mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes, we can fix them, you can kind of brush them off, or I don't know, solve them at that moment. But there are some mistakes which are, really hard to fix. For example, like I had this situation where I went with certain style of headshots, and then the clients didn't like it, so we have to do this whole reshoot. And there's, I don't want to say a lot of drama, but like I felt bad because I'm wasting these people's time, right? So like I've learned this like massive lesson. So tell me a little bit about your system, how you approach to organizing, let's say, big group photo shoot. Let's kind of dive into the details, like how you basically do all those steps to make sure that this whole thing goes flawless and everyone is happy. At the end of the day, they're not only getting the good product, which is one of the most important elements, but also the experience, which just kind of makes this whole thing even more valuable. So let's dive into this thing.
Sure. So when an inquiry comes in, and it's usually via email for me, I have a pre-written, what we call them, swipe emails, a pre-written response that I will then tweak based on the information they give me. But I know in advance, based on the experience that I've gone through, the classes that I've taken, what they're looking for. So, and most of the time, they don't know what they're looking for, or they're just too busy to give all the information. So I have an email. I'll have it broken up by sections with bullet points, so it's easy to scan. It's not a big heavy thing to read. And I will go through, and my confidence in my ability to do this is important, because if you don't show your confidence in it, then they worry, because they don't want to micromanage you. So I'm going to say, I can do this. This is my specialty. And and right up front, here's how much it costs. My pricing's on my website. I don't hide anything. For the kind of headshots that I do, it's not a selling process. It's just like, here's how much it is, and here's what you get for it. And because it's so driven by budgets or what their perception of what headshots should cost.
Yes.
And I'm not going to get into they don't want to get into a big, long sales process. So it's like, this is how much it costs, and here's what you get. And what you say of what they get is important, and it can differentiate you. And then I give them next steps. So that says right off the bat, she knows what she's doing. She knows exactly what to do. That part I don't have to worry about. And they can look on my website for examples. So a lot of times they're just like, does she have experience? And do people like her? And is the price within our budget? That's pretty much the three things that they're thinking of. So, and then once they decide to go forward, I provide, I'm in 17 hats. So I give them the quote, the contract, and the invoice. Once that is all secured, then I send them a confirmation email saying, okay, you're officially booked. And then I'll ask any additional questions that didn't get answered up front that I'm still missing. For instance, what background do you want? I could get into lighting styles. I don't think any of my customers can see the difference. They don't see it. So I can show them the same background in different lighting, and unless it's dramatically different, they don't see the difference. So, and for the most part, I will say to them, I looked at your website, I looked at your brand colors. I think this color would make the most sense, and it will. I think what's also really important for them, it's a color that's going to work with most skin tones, and that's usually a medium gray. So I don't get into a lot of creativity with these corporate headshots. And then I will send them, I do have a web page that I send them to if they're kind of like, they do want to get into a bit of this, and I'll have actual examples because they can't visualize this. I'm not going to say, oh, what about a blue background? Do you want a spotlight? Do you want it really moody? They don't know, and they don't care. So if I give them visual examples and I tell them what my recommendation is for their specific company, 95% of the time they'll say yes. That's it. I mean, a good 10% people just don't even get back to me.
Oh.
And I'll just say at the last minute, okay, I'm coming in with this. Unless you tell me otherwise, I'm coming in with this. And they don't care. So then there's that piece up front. I always show up a little bit early. I always make sure that I'm ready 15 minutes before, because inevitably the CEO or somebody's going to come rushing up, all in a panic. And even though they have a time slot later in the day, they're like, I have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes. Can you do me right now?
Yes. I've
And
heard that every time. It's like a
yes.
never-ending story. It happens on every corporate shoot. Like nobody has time.
Well, here's my theory on this. They come in and they're all just, acting very like
Anxiety kicking
impatient,
in or something.
anxiety, all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, so if I'm ready, it's like, no problem, let's do it. We sit down and we go through it. 20 minutes later, they're still there. And we're laughing and we're having a good time. And I'm realizing, I think he was nervous. And it's usually he's not always, but he just wanted to get this over with and just not have to deal with it. And then we have a great time. And I see people start lining up in the hallways and they go, oh, it's the CEO. And they turn around, and they leave because it's time for everyone's time slots. And I'll have to say, listen, you're scaring everybody. You need to go so I can photograph the rest of the team. And he's like, oh, it's okay. They can wait, So I do think that it must be really hard for people who have not worked in a corporate environment like I have. I do feel very comfortable walking in there, and that confidence is important. But I think the other photographers that I've met who do this, who've never worked in a corporate environment, they're fine. They're absolutely fine. Just be a normal human being. And especially the people at the executive levels, they're kind of used to people being nervous, the people that work there. And they really enjoy having somebody who just treats them like a regular human being. I think they really appreciate that. So
Yes.
You just go in and not worry about it. And it always just works out fine.
Yes. I think, you brought really interesting point, because I have also, ability to work with high profile people. And one of the things what I've noticed is exactly what you said. If you're treating them as a normal human beings and you approach the photo shoot, like it's just the kind of conversation between two people, changes completely the dynamic of the photo shoot. Because I think a lot of people in the corporate world, like there's this ladder system where someone who is above you, like, I'm not saying you're scared of them, but you have to have different dynamic when you kind of approach them, when you talk to them, and when you coming in and you treat them at the same level, just completely changes everything. And they also, what I've noticed, if you've built this kind of trust with them, they kind of put themselves in your hands. That's what I've noticed, which is also fascinating for us as a photographers.
Yes.
They just give themselves to you and like, okay, do whatever you can, do whatever you want, just make me look good. So that's also is fascinating, that you're even working with these high profile people, then allowing you to kind of like, you can mold them throughout a photo shoot to get the stuff what you're looking for.
It is really, when I was working in corporate, I would have said I was totally afraid of the executive team. If I saw them, I'd run the other direction. Like, I don't know what to say to them. They don't know who I am or whatever. So it has been interesting coming in from the other side, where it's like, I don't have any, I don't have much, I guess, stake in the game to, make the person that I work for, happy. It's very different going in. But if you think about it, when they're out and they're outside of work, they're just a normal person. Nobody knows who they are. And so whether they're at the grocery store, they're getting their hair cut, they're at a store, nobody knows. And so you're just treating them just like in those situations, and they're very comfortable. As I get older, I'm realizing these people are about the same age as me now. And I'm like, I went to high school with somebody like you. Like, I can't
Yeah.
be intimidated by this, and
Yeah.
we're all still children inside, and we all
Yeah.
still want to have a good laugh. So it really isn't something, if they're being really intimidated, it's on them. And what I'm finding is that I think it's because they're nervous. They're putting on a bravado. It's because they're nervous. And so once you can just show them that this is not an intimidating environment, I'm here to take care of you, they'll completely relax, and they'll actually have a good time. So
That's perfect.
yeah.
So let's kind of go back, and I want to kind of talk a little bit about more those challenging aspects of negotiations and dealing with those difficult clients, because I think a lot of people struggle with this. And I remember back in the days when I got some very, like, profitable contract or opportunity, I used to panic. I was just like, how I even deal with these people, how I can talk to them, how I can negotiate, because this corporate world is like, it's sometimes the way I felt is like, okay, they know what they want, they're giving you the price, they give you the budget, and you just like, you either take it, you want it from one hand, but sometimes like they devalue, let's say, your work. um so how you deal with those kind of those type of situations where you have potential client, it looks like it's going to be interesting project, you would love to take it on, but they started kind of making this whole thing a little bit challenging for you as a photographer, and they just challenge you with all sorts of different things. How you approach this, or you just like, there's a some kind of, you draw the line, or you make some kind of boundaries, okay, this is the way it is, this is the way it's going to go, or you also kind of getting into this game where you're playing with this whole negotiation process. Can you tell me about that? Because I think it's different story with individual clients, but with those type of clients who are high profile corporate world, it's a different type of negotiations. And I want to talk to you because it seems like you've got a lot of experience when it comes to that.
Um, Honestly, I haven't had to do much negotiation.
Okay.
If I just put it out there, that's pretty much what happens. If I'm getting pushback,
Hmm.
I'll think of all that. How much do I really want this job? Is this job going to be really great for my portfolio? Is having them as part of my client base really going to boost my career? So, am I willing to negotiate? And I'm assuming, take less money for that. Am I going to get something of value out of this? If they're really going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, that's a red flag
Okay.
to me, in my experience, that I don't, no matter what client it is, it isn't the company so much as it's usually the individuals I'm working with, or the group that I'm working with. And there's a lot of dysfunction in the corporate world.
Mhm.
There's some companies that really have a great cultural environment, and there's some that are just really struggling. And if my experience have been, because I've done this, so I've experienced it, I went ahead and took these jobs, is that it just ends up being a nightmare for me, and it ends up being more work. And so I've just decided it's not worth my time. So, and I might just say, if they're really giving me a hard time about prices, I will say, hey, I know I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. I can
Mhm.
recommend a couple photographers for you that I know that charge less. Now, once in a while, somebody will say, no, 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 we want to stay with you. And that pretty much brings them back in line.
Okay.
And some people are really grateful for it. And so I do not want to be the photographer for everybody.
Okay.
I I don't know what everybody charges in my area. Not everybody posts their prices, but of those who post it, I think I'm the most expensive.
Okay.
I want to be the photographer in my area that people go, they have budgets. They're going to go, get me somebody super qualified who's got it together and who's going to get this done. I don't want the clients who are like, let's try to find the cheapest photographer that we can get the
Okay.
most, out of this. And so those clients, just like in, in family photography and wedding photography, when you raise up to that level, you're not going to get people who are going to be nickel and diming you. They're just the ones who are like, we're buying your experience. I mean, I come in and I might even ask a question while I'm there, and they're like, whatever you want to do, we hired you to figure this out. So those are the clients that I want.
So what is the most challenging element when it comes to, let's say, getting the client? Because, like, I think we've discussed all sorts of different elements. So, like, in your opinion, when it comes to the corporate world, what is the biggest concern? Is the price? Is, the way you handle this whole thing, your experience, the quality of work? What do you think is the most important element for them based on your experience? So, like, when they're coming to you, what they're the biggest concern?
It depends on which client level you are going after. Since I chose to make my prices on the higher end and to serve big name clients. For them, the most important thing is experience. She's going to get it done. She's going to be efficient, and she's going to, do it well. In their mind, doing it well means we get it quickly. Not they don't notice the level of photography. They at a certain point they just can't see the difference. But if I was to position myself maybe on the middle ground, then price is going to probably be more important. It just depends on where you want to position yourself.
So let's go more into a little bit of different aspect, how you work with clients. So let's say you have some group session. Let's say there is 20, team members. How this process look like, and I want to know, because I know every photographer works differently. Some people, they like to spend more time with each client. But I know with the groups, it's a little bit of different dynamics. You have to work quicker, more efficient. You have to connect with them right on the spot. You have to get their shot. And it's based on what I feel talking to you, like you're extremely warm person. So I think whoever's coming towards you already has this warmth coming from you, and it feels more comfortable. So it's a little bit also, not a little bit, I think it's a huge element. Like, even your personality adds so much to it that, people feel comfortable around you. So tell me a little bit about actually working with your clients, how this whole thing looks like. I don't want to talk about the lighting and setting, more about these interactions you have with your clients.
So that's a great question. And it's all about, for me, disarming people. So I set it up, and you have to be a people person to be a headshot photographer. And I consider myself slightly more introverted than extroverted, but introverts are really great one-on-one. So, and I'm working with people one-on-one. Everyone comes for their time slots. I don't normally have a crowd around me or anything. So I think I'm in my element. And just recently I had this little epiphany. When I set up my equipment, I feel like I've set up my house inside their house. And I'm inviting them, because in a way, I think psychologically, I've made myself comfortable here.
Yes.
And I'm inviting them into my house. So that's sort of a nice feeling for me. And I love to host. I love to host, having people over my house. So I feel like I'm hosting them. And I think people really feel welcome. So you always have to greet them with a smile. Their very first impression has to be smile. It's kind of like when I was living overseas, and if you're kind of like, I don't know about these people, it shows on your face.
Yes.
And then everyone else is looking at you with the same face you're unconsciously giving. You have to give, your initial expression to every single person has to be a big warm smile. And then you bring them in, and I go over there, and I might, first get really close and say, can I come and, do some things with your clothing, your collar, whatever. So we're talking really quietly at that point. And, they're given a chance to calm down. And this is when they start divulging everything they hate about themselves, everything physically. And so you're having to take this on. And I have a few sayings that I say to people, which is, I go, my editing is custom to every single person. So you tell me, whatever, and whatever it is, and I've got your back, but on whatever it is. And I like to say I edit with heart. I edit the way my heart sees you, and that helps a lot of people. And I say the only thing I can't edit in there is your spark. So we're going to work on giving you your real smile, because I can't, no amount of retouching is really going to give that real natural smile. The rest of it, don't worry. If your eyes, close up when you smile, I'll brighten those up. If you get a lot of wrinkles around because I got a lot of people who don't want to smile because they go, oh, my wrinkles show up. I'm like, I've got your back. I've got your back on everything, but we just need to get your real smile. And they're like, oh, I don't like my smile. My smile's crooked or something like that. And I'll say, Maya D'Angelo has this saying, and I can't remember the exact words, but it's something along the lines of, people don't remember what you said or what you did, but they remember how you made them feel. And that's all we need to do. I went and looked up to try to find a study on, how do people perceive other people? And the study I found was that people spend 3 seconds looking at your portrait or you. That's it. And they unconsciously come away with friend or foe. It's just friend or foe. So if you give that half smile, if you're trying to look all cool or whatever, it could come off differently in a static picture. And in almost every situation, there's always exceptions. No matter what level you're at, it's always about, can I work with that person? Can I work for that person? Can I work with that person? Or can I is that person coachable? So you just give me the friend in you, and I'll take care of everything else. And that, it doesn't work for everybody, but it works for most people. And then I get behind the camera, and then I just say stupid stuff. And then I just say, I'm acting like a big dork over here, and you're not giving it to me. Come on, I'm failing. And then I get the laugh. And you want to catch them right after that laugh comes down, right? But there definitely is a rapport that has to happen. I mean, I've had executives come right up to me in the middle of it and go, I had no idea how intimate this is. And I'm like, okay, I'm not quite sure what that means, but okay, we'll go with it. Yeah. But they feel very vulnerable. And I get that. I don't like having my picture taken, and I tell them that. I don't either. I don't like having all that attention on me, but we're going to get through this, and you're going to be really happy with the results. So that's what we do.
So you're pretty much making these people like their images before they even taken. So you're just putting them in this right.
That is such a great way to put it. And I have thought of that. It's kind of like what in the family photography classes I've taken, where they say, make it such a great experience. Like you make it like the family's getting together and do things that are fun, so that the family remembers how much fun they had together, that by the time they go and look at the pictures, they already have that great memory attached to it. And I think that does go a long way, versus just, I've had so many people say, they go, the last photographer just told me to stand there, didn't help me to pose. And then when I looked at the pictures and I said, I don't like this, they said, well, that's just how you look. And I'm like,
it's more how you feel. I think that's what it is.
It's more how you feel. So it's each person feels like I'm on their side to make them look like their best, then they calm down. And if they had a good experience with me, they're already happy. I have people coming back to me at the end of my shoot. They're hugging me. They haven't even seen their pictures yet. Yeah. They're hugging me. They're so happy. So I've had my point person a few times come up to me and say, never in my life have I had such great feedback from a vendor. Mm-hmm. So well, we hear that across all genres, unless you're doing, I guess, landscape. Yeah. It's all about the experience.
It is. And I think headshots are extremely personal experience. And that's what I love about this industry, because every session, every person who comes to you and stand at the front of the camera, for us even, is a different experience, right? Like you learn something new from each person. And these people have to expose themselves. They have to open up to you. And I think that's what it's such a tremendous experience for all of us, right? So let me kind of go back a little bit and tell me a little bit more about how you deal with those challenging clients, because we all have them, right? It's not that everyone is easy to work with. I know sometimes take a little bit of time to break the ice, and then you can kind of get them fairly quickly. But what about those people who, they extremely sensitive, they really don't want to do it, they kind of shutting themselves down on the front of the camera, and I'm sure you've got those clients as well. Tell me how you break the ice, how you navigate through this difficult moments where you see, okay, you know what, this person is completely, there's a wall there, and there's nothing I can do. Because I have those clients, not quite often, but I had some of those who, like, I was just pulling my hair out to, get into them. So how you deal with those type of situations?
It depends on the situation. If I'm doing really high volume where I'm like going through at 3 minutes or less per person, I'm not going to worry too much about it because there's not a whole lot I can do. Most of the time, my spiel that I tell them works. I think a lot of those people don't want to show teeth. They're just so nervous they can't even make that big smile. And I just tell them that's okay. That's okay. And they just want it to be over with. And if I can just get a decent shot with this closed mouth smile, we've accomplished as much as we're going to be able to do with that person. Right. If I have more time, one of the things I've realized is it's important where I position myself at the offices. So if I'm positioned in a place where everybody walking by can see the person, certain people are going to love that and certain people are going to hate that. So I always try to position, and there's been a couple of times where there's a bunch of people piling up behind me and we're all looking, and I turn around and I just say, I need all of you to move someplace else. Yes. Because, and the other person might say, oh, it's okay. Or the other person won't say a thing and they're just like, thank you. But I've noticed that can sometimes really be hard for people. And the other thing is, I haven't done this, but I've always had in the back of my mind, I can say, would you like to come back? I mean, you probably would lose them at that point. They'd never come back. So maybe that wouldn't be such a great idea. But I'll just keep talking to them. If I need to spend extra time with them, I will, at the expense of the other time slots, I'll do that. And I know my point person will appreciate that. So I'm always thinking about, what would my point person want? And, but it can't be a winner every single time. And if you try to do that, you're going to end up putting yourself in a bad place, I think. You can't always win. Not every single person is going to be able to come around. But I would say 99% of the time, it's good. It's definitely good enough for what they need.
Well, I'm sure you also, like, with the time, you're perfecting the craft, right? So
experience and time.
Experience, and even though it's challenging, you still can manage to get something which is workable, right? Something that is, and like, I want to kind of bring very important point which you've made, but I want to just kind of share with a little bit my experience. Like, I remember when I started shooting individual headshots, and I was going to the clients' houses because they used to come to my studio, but sometimes, they're like, oh, I can't, I live far away, whatever, can you come into my place? And I noticed huge difference when I was shooting at their place and when I was shooting at the studio, because in their homes, it was their environment. They felt comfortable. And this is what you said about hosting people, right? They coming to your place or you coming to their place and you're the guest, but that's their environment. That's their place. That's where the safety zone is. And I noticed massive shift in how people work with me, the final results. And I think that's extremely important, especially for this corporate stuff. The environment is huge element, because you said, because there's some people, they're gonna say, hey, you know what, I can have 100 people watching me, but then sometimes you might have person who is one person watching them and just completely, maybe not ruin the session, but definitely makes this whole thing more challenging.
Yeah. Sorry if I can interrupt. That's making me remember, for some people I've said, would you like to go find a friend of yours and have them come over? And sometimes they say no, and sometimes they say yes. If they have a friend in the company who will come over and be there, for some people that's helpful.
Wow. Yeah. So everyone needs something different to make them feel more comfortable. Some people need to be alone, but sometimes people need friend. And then I think the fact you can figure it out and you can ask that question just make a whole difference for the shoot.
Right. And once I get behind, I'm saying silly, teasing things. I'm just trying to get them laugh. I was in an engineering firm one time, and this guy comes in and he's 6'6", and he's a big guy, and he gets in there and he stomps in, and he's just gets in front, and he's just like, and I'm like, what is going on? And he's just like, and I go, do we need to go beat somebody up? Like, what happened to you? And he's starting to go, and he said, well, I don't know why we have to do this. Nobody buys us because of what we look like. And I didn't even think, it just came out of my mouth. And I said, we have to at least look like you're not going to eat me. And he just burst out laughing. I got him right at the end of that, and he just said, you're good. And he laughed, and I got it. I mean, you just have to, don't let, if you're worried about what you're going to say, then that's going to hold you back. And it comes from experience. You just got to keep doing it and realizing that you can just be you. Just be you. And people are going to recognize when you're genuine, people are going to recognize that. I mean, I will fawn over people. And when I go to high security places, well, they'll always have somebody in the room with me. And there's been times where I've turned around and I said, oh, you must just be gagging over all the stuff I'm saying to everybody. I go, but I'm sure it just sounds fake, but it's not. Like, I truly believe everything I'm saying. And they will say, no, I get it. I feel that,
Yes. Yeah. And also what I think you cannot allow those people to kind of put the fear on you because most of them they're coming terrified, right? Okay, I
Right.
have to get this headshot done and like I don't want to do this, and then they try to kind of post that on you a little bit
Right.
that I'm scared and I don't want to do it, do your job and let me go.
Right.
But as soon as you start cracking some jokes and make them treat them like people and don't take this too seriously, then completely change the dynamics and they started kind of cracking up and opening up and the session itself becoming more pleasant because I think there's nothing worse that as you said, you're coming to the session with someone and someone is already like going crazy because it's not helping for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me right now, I want to know a little bit more about choosing the final images because this is one of the elements I've noticed, even in my experience, might be challenging sometimes, right? Because the way we see images, the way the client sees the images, and sometimes we have those creative directors or people who is in charge. I've been in this situation even for the corporate sessions where the person who was in charge for this entire shoot, she was picking the pictures. Um, and it sometimes might be conflicting, people might don't like it. So tell me a little bit about your process, how you allowing your clients work with you to get the shots which aligning with kind of your quality, but also what, like, because I know, as I said, there's difference between what you like and what your client likes. So how does process look like in your end? So let's say you finish the shoot, you have the clients, I don't know, you're sending them off the images, you're showing them at that spot. How does process look like?
It depends. If I'm shooting, I don't know, 10 people or less, I'll sit there with them right after their session and we'll go through them together, and
Okay.
I'll help them choose, and I'll tell them my point of view. And my point, people trust me to do that because, if I get the attorney, female attorney who wants to do pictures like this,
Yeah.
I'll coach her. She keeps doing it and I keep putting her back.
Yeah.
And I'll explain to her, that this is a marketing piece and this is supposed to show that you're to your clients that you are capable, experts, and approachable, And so if we get that picture, you have done your job. And amongst these, I think these three are the ones that really nail that. And usually they'll come around to that. But most of my work is more than that, people, and I let them choose. So, and I've come to realize in the beginning, I would be pretty fixated on the ones that I thought were the best ones. But my experience over time is that we all see ourselves differently. And there are things in particular pictures that people see about themselves and they really like that. It may not be the most artistic. It may not be the most perfect image, but there's something in that image about themselves that they really like. And I've come to the conclusion they should have that. That isn't my decision. As long as I'm not giving them choices that I think are unprofessional, I just give them the choices that I know their company would be happy with. Then I let them choose. And at this point, I'm using headshot tools. Yeah. And so I'm doing instant delivery. And I do say to people, if after you get it and I'm still here, I'm like, go look right now and look at your images. If there isn't one that you love, hop back into line. And, I'll shoot some more. So they feel like they have some control over the process, that they're not just like, well, that's what the photographer gave me and I'm stuck with it. So I try to give them as much control as possible. But I think, especially with the men, it might be the perfect shot that's, 45 degree, the head, all that kind of stuff. But if there's another picture where his jaw is more chiseled looking, he's going to pick that one. Yeah. And that's what he likes about it. And if there's a person with a woman and I really like the shot that's this way, but she really likes her hair, covered more like this. And if it's perfect, I'm going to let her have that. I see it. I get it. And it's not, I really think it's not about my art. It's about my ability. I'm more focused on how I can make each person feel confident and have a picture they want to put out there that they want to depict of themselves. That's more important, I think, in the headshot genre than having something that I'm like, this is the best picture to put in my portfolio.
Yeah. 100% agree with you, because I know sometimes, again, we see images a little bit different. We have different feelings. We have different biases, I think, sometimes to how the perfect image should look like. But I 100% agree that, the client has to see something there that they like about themselves, because that's completely change everything. And also what I've learned, and I don't know if this is your experience, but I've noticed also that people have to digest those images. And what I mean by that, I have clients who, like, at the beginning, it's okay, I like this picture, it's good, I will use it. And then with the time, when they get more affirmations, they get more positive feedback, and then I always ask them, like, put that on the Facebook, and people start commenting, and like this ego start growing, and they're like, you know what, I like this picture at the beginning, but now I really love it. And I think it's just a process to get people to really see what we capture, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's something which is also kind of interesting when it comes to the headshots, that those images like grow onto those people, right? With the time, it's like a wine. The older it gets, and I have clients sometimes like, it's 5 years. Come on, you have to redo it. Like, no, that was just the perfect shot you've done 5 years ago, and I'm not changing. Even my hair are gray and whatever, I still love that image. So that's also kind of give you this amazing feeling that you've done something right for them, that they cherish this for so many years.
Yes. I do love that. I love it. Most of my customers I'm not connected with them on Facebook. I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. But when those that I am connected with, and I do see them posting it on Facebook, I love seeing all the love that they're getting from it. It's fantastic. It's a great feeling as a photographer.
And also what is interesting, what I don't know, you've experienced that, whenever people post, like I've seen this on the Facebook, this is actually the ideal platform. I think LinkedIn is pretty much the same, but people can post all sorts of different stuff. I don't know, some Christmas parties, you name it, right? But as soon as they put their headshots, the pouring love coming from all sorts of different directions, it's insane. Like I had this client, and she put these pictures, and she got, I don't know, like 200 something likes. She's like, oh my god, this is like, I never seen people just react to those pictures in that kind of intense. And a lot of photographers, they don't realize, I think, if they do something right and they create some interesting image and people post that, people react to headshots on completely different level than anything else.
It is interesting. So here's another really dorky thing I say. So and I don't say this for everybody, more so for the people who come to my studio, is I say, I know this is just a business headshot, but I believe they're also a legacy piece. If you think of the pictures we have of our grandparents, they're headshots. They're not too dissimilar to this. And I don't provide any prints or anything, but I'll point them to some of the consumer printers, the higher end ones that print on archival paper. And I'll explain how they really need to print it and they need to put it away for their children to inherit one day or something. And I think that's just another piece that before they leave the studio, they've really liked this experience. And so they love that photo, like you said before they've even seen the final product. But I do think that's important. I think it's like, we're all getting more family shots than we've ever had. We all have more wedding photos than we've ever had before previous generations, but still there's something really special and there's something very intimate about something that's close up.
Yes.
That is meaningful. So, I don't know. I think we're and I know we're just doing headshots, but I think we're doing some pretty meaningful work.
Absolutely. No, 100% agree with you. And I think headshot, because I think this is kind of my theory, because I think, we communicate through face expressions, right? That's even there's some scientific studies behind it that, there's, I don't know, 30% verbal and most of it is like, face expressions. It's just the body language, all those things which we kind of don't see, but our brain can pick it up and kind of sense something. And I think that's what is so amazing about headshots, because that's how we, kind of interact with each other, the face, right? We're looking at each other, the face. We communicate through face expressions. And I think that's why when someone sees someone's headshot, they can get this message, get this feeling. And that's why I think that's why this is so fascinating. Because as you said, like, we can take the full body shots, but they don't have as much impact in the way I see it, as like a really good headshot. And I think that's what is interesting about what we do. And as you said, like a lot of people say like, oh, just a headshot. And I can also say, because I came from wedding industry, and I was like, what's the big deal to do a good headshot? It's just like someone's looking at you, you take a shot. But then when I start doing it, I'm just like, you know what? This is way more complicated than we really think. There's way more to it. And it's not even about the lighting, about the setting. It's about that connection. It's about this face experience. Because you can really notice if someone show you good headshot and like average and bad one, you can say it right away. You don't even have to be an expert. You just see it, right?
Yeah.
So I think to get to that level, it takes a lot of work and understanding, not only the lighting and technicalities, but as you said, the connection, the interactions, the breaking the ice. There's so much psychology behind it that people have just no idea how much goes into this.
It's having the compassion for each person that comes there, and what they're so brave to come up in front of that camera just to start with.
Yes.
But I was just talking to another headshot photographer the other day, and I said, I love photography. I enjoy doing it, but there's something that I love even better, which doing headshot photography just marries the two together, which is I just want to make somebody's day. I just want to make their day. And that's the attitude that I go in, that I want to make their day. I have a few clients who come see me every year just because they want the morale booster.
Wow.
They just come in, they go, you always make me feel like $1,000,000. And I mean, it certainly benefits their business and what they're trying to do, but they know they're going to, when they need a confidence boost, photos can do that for them if they're willing to be brave and come in with somebody that they feel safe with.
Yeah. But there's one more interesting thing which just came to my mind right now. Like I know that, but I think you really showing this for this entire conversation we have, that the approach to headshot photography, the way most photographers, that's what should be their approach. It's not about us, our ego. It's about the subject, about the person who is at the front of the camera. It's all about them and how we can make them feel, how we can make them open up to us, and how we can make their day better, as you mentioned. And I think a lot of scenarios is other way around, right? Like it's about me. I want to kind of get this good shot. I want to get this lighting right. I want to get this equipment which is going to show how amazing photographer I am. But it's completely opposite, right? It's something that it's completely reverse, that the people who are coming to us, this is this is where the spotlight should be, not other way around.
I think so. I mean, I'm sure there are successful headshot photographers that do it differently.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of owning your own business, is that there's not one way to do it.
Yes.
But it certainly is a benefit for me, and it helps me to love what I do, because I'm being authentic, helping them be authentic. And if they then feel like, I'm actually going to start using my headshot, I hated my headshot before, I wouldn't use it, they feel better about themselves and putting themselves out there, they then become more successful. Then that's my measure of success, is whether I've helped other people, not how much money I made or how much how great my art was. I mean, I guess I'm getting older. I start thinking, what's my legacy? And I think for me, it is how many people I helped to feel confident in themselves and want to put themselves out there more.
Okay, so that leads me to the last question. Can you tell me what would be your advice to photographers who are starting off, photographers who want to get into this headshot photography business? What would you tell them based on your long time experience, what they should focus on the most? I think it's clear what you're saying, but I want to kind of dive a little bit more deeper. What would you tell them?
Well, I definitely say start small. So start working with individuals. You want to get all that experience with you under your belt, and figure out what your style is, figure out what your process is, figure out what works for you and your customers. And then if you want to move into what I'm doing, which is more company headshots, going in and doing teams of people, then you need to start figuring out how to run a business and how to be really efficient and succinct in what you need to do. I know that the business challenge at PPA has evolved. It's all online now. I'm sure it's the same thing or even better than what I went through. You'll learn a lot there. Take lots of classes. I mean, the day I stop taking classes is the day that my business will start to decline. I've been doing this for, I think, 7 years now, and I just feel like I'm moving into adolescence.
Okay.
I was the infant, and then in the elementary school, I'm like adolescence, looking forward to that college experience. I don't know. There's always something to be learning, whether it's business or it's the photography. Both of those are an ongoing, forever journey. Go and meet other photographers. I have several photographers that I'm connected with across the country and in Canada. And I will bounce. It's a very lonely business. I bounce ideas off. We'll video chat each other. We'll like say, hey, this is the marketing piece I put together. Here's my newsletter. What do you think? Or, is your business slow? My business slow. What's going on? I mean, having that network is
Community.
super important. And I go to Imaging USA every year because we all get together, all the headshot photographers, and it just fills my soul. And I just talk shop nonstop. And so when I come home, my husband doesn't have to hear about it. So
So what is the future of headshot photography? What's your opinion on that? Is it going to grow? It's going to slow down? It's going to stay steady? What's your prediction?
I think it's on the uptick right now. I think that people have needed headshots more than ever before. I mean, as we do more and more business online, as businesses are on social media and more, the importance, and even when I was working many years ago, most of my work was via email. So having your picture and your email signature, I think, is super important, because I go and see these people in a meeting later, and I didn't know that's who I was talking with on my
Yes.
email, because I'm so visual. So
Yes.
I just think we will continue. Headshots are definitely, I feel like we're kind of in the golden age right now. I know a lot of people are worried about AI, and AI's on horizon. It'll be really interesting to see how that goes. Right now, I have lots of clients who say I wouldn't be caught dead having my team in AI. And I let all my other customers know that I'm hearing this. So I'm feeding this story of like, these are companies who their people is their biggest assets. So making the decision to go AI is a big branding decision for them that they will not take lightly. And right now, most of them don't want to go down that path.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not that changes, that's a possibility. But I'm also starting to just see a trend out where I am, where I'm getting people who say, don't edit me. Just get rid of the hair flyaways, but I don't want to be edited. And these are the young people.
Wow.
And before, the young people were like, do everything.
Yes.
And so I hope that trend continues, and that people want real authenticity. I'm hoping that the AI creates a backlash of people wanting the opposite.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Agree.
But I think for at least the next 5 years, headshots is just on the uptick.
Yeah, agree. 100%. Glynns, thank you so much for this conversation. I
Thank you.
truly enjoy talking to you. We brought so many interesting topics. We dive deep in some of those. I thought we were going to go more business, but I think it's so hard sometimes because this is so personal. And business is a one kind of side of the story, but if you don't have that human element into this whole thing falls apart. So I think you brought that to the light a lot today, and then I'm glad we could navigate this conversation that direction. So lastly, I want to kind of talk about it because you have upcoming workshop. Can you tell me a little bit about that? So people,
Sure.
because I'm sure they're going to be interested to learn more from you. It seems like you have this amazing approach to headshots. You've got a lot of experience. You've been extremely successful. So I'm sure there will be a lot of people who wants to learn from you. So tell me a little bit about this upcoming workshop you're having.
So I'm teaching a pre-con. Thank you very much. I'm teaching a pre-con class at Imaging USA, and I think it's February 1st, and it's how to be continually booked for team headshots of 5 to 100 people. And I will be talking about the business, mostly the marketing, like how do you attract these people, where to find these companies, and how to keep serving them and get repeat business from them. So it will be, I'll have a PowerPoint presentation chock full of information that will keep me focused.
Okay.
on the business part. So it's definitely going to be focused on how can you attract these people and make them happy. So
Perfect. So is there's a link people can find this course, well, this so they can attend it. So I'll talk after when we finish, and then we're going to
Okay.
try to link to all, all your social media, your websites, and all the courses you're doing, so people have full access so they can check it out.
Sounds great. Thank
So
you.
thank you so much. Again, I'm sure we will do it. This whole kind of conversation, we're going to come back to this, and I'd love to talk to you again in the near future and see how this whole thing is unfolding at the front of our eyes, especially with the AI and some other stuff. But I would like to go back to this conversation because I think we just scratched the surface today.
I would love to. It was a pleasure to do this. Thank you so much.
Okay, so have a fantastic day, and thank you for watching, everyone. And then if there's any questions, any concerns, anything you guys would like to add to this, please write down stuff in the comment section, and I'll be more than happy to answer all of them. So take care, everybody.
Bye.